Era 2, Striving. Finding a legitimate publisher.
What is a legitimate publisher? Well, a legitimate publisher is, again, remember you guys, you can be published if you're self-published. You don't have to bring up your previous publishing credits to open a door at another publisher. A lot of other publishers will actually be quite turned off by that because they'll think, why aren't you still with that publisher? Why are you bringing a book to us if you're with a publisher? Now, that changes if, for instance, we love to launch careers. If someone is like, I really want to do the corporate thing, Jennifer. I know you tell these horror stories, but I want to do the tour the world, all that kind of, like, okay. I'll say, bring us one series, we'll publish it, get your name out there, get you nice and established. Guess what we won't reveal? How many copies you've sold. But we're going to treat you like you are a bestseller, off the charts, absolutely fantastic. Why? Because we love your story and it's timeless. Now, pitch your second series to Random House. Here's our letter of recommendation. Here's an agent you can work with, and there you go. That's completely a thing. We don't mind doing that. It's all right. We understand that everyone has bills to pay. And a lot of times what we have people do is they bring like their passion project to us, well, I have a mystery series where it's told from the dog's point of view. I'm like, yes, bring that to us. That is very much what we would do. Because the dog sees all people as equal. Fantastic. Bring it on. Okay. But I also have a series, about a guy named Dexter who works for the police but is actually a serial killer. I'll be like, yes, take that to Random House. Very good. Carry on. Okay. So a legitimate publisher, what I define that as is a publisher who owns their own ISBN block. Okay, ISBNs are that little number on the back of your book. If you self-publish, that little number is assigned by your printer. And any bookstore or library or reviewer who types that little ISBN, which is an international number, so it's worldwide, it will tell them whether or not your book is self-published. You can't hide it. There is no hiding. Legitimate publishers buy blocks of those ISBNs. They buy them for anything from, depending on how much bulk they're buying, from $25 each to $150 each. But they own the prefix. So I know, for instance, that Blue Forge Press owns 9 prefixes. We've completely bought out that entire block. So 1886383 is our block. So that, a business license, saying that they are a publisher. A business license in publishing, not just a general business license. Publishing insurance. Who do they have partnerships with? Do they work with Ingram? Do they work with Amazon? Do they work with Barnes & Noble? Did they work with Baker & Taylor before Baker & Taylor, who is the largest library distributor in the world, was bought out by Ingram? Checks and balances. Do they have managing editors? Do they have editors? Who is it just one person? For instance, a very famous press, they have since closed, but Firebrand that did a lot of very powerful socio-political work. The senior editor and the publisher were the same person. And very wonderful books, but I mean, they did one book a year, understandably. So are there checks and balances, or is it just like anything that's sent to them is published? Are they asking you to pay for your print run? Are they asking you to pay your editor? Are they asking you to hire a publicist? Are they asking you to open your wallet for any reason? If they are asking you to pay for any part of publishing your book, they are not a legitimate publisher. They are a vanity press, period, no matter what they call themselves. Okay, so the vanity press publishing options are like the pay to publish, the hybrids. I actually consider, and not in the negative, when writers groups put out an anthology or a collection, I consider that a kind of vanity publication. Because vanity, not in the like, oh, you're so vain. Vanity as in this is something we're doing for us. And that's totally fine. Now, personally, if I have my work in something, I want it to look good. I want it to look like it belongs on the shelves at Barnes & Noble. So I would fight with my writers group to, get that professional cover. A professional cover doesn't mean the artist in the group did the cover. It means the cover stands up to the other covers on the shelf in that genre. Does it look as professional as the other books on the shelf in that genre? So, totally fine. Vanity Press is that way, because I understand some clubs, you might pay dues, and so you might think, oh, that's kind of pay to play, but that's fine. It's a passion project. When we no longer say small publishers, so we say independent publishers, which we talked about before. And how is a nonprofit publisher different from an independent publisher? A nonprofit publisher, we tend to be associated with either literal federal nonprofits like Blue Forge Press, or like colleges. You guys have probably, most of the large universities have a publishing arm. All that really means is that they publish in a niche category. And they're, again, not driven by what is timely, they're driven by what is timeless. And then there are corporate publishers. This is Random House, Penguin, Tor. St. Martin's used to actually be considered an independent press, but they are now a corporate press. They've just gotten so huge. What is a corporate press? A corporate press is looking for something that's a little bit more timely, a little bit more in the current headlines, and by and large, about 85% of the time, a corporate publishing house will require that you use an agent to submit to them. Now, if you stop and think about that for a minute, you go, oh, of course they would. Because they're publishing hundreds of books every year, and they don't want to be the quality checks and balances. They want the first line of defense to be someone they don't have to pay. And that's your agent, who you're going to pay. Now, you might be thinking, do we really pay agents? No. They take a commission of your sales. An agent that says, I'm going to charge you to sign with me is not a legitimate agent.
That's the truth.
Period. Like, hard stop. I have had this argued with me live until I finally had to stop the person and say, excuse me, are you an agent? So, you guys see what I'm saying? Okay. So corporate publishers, they are a perfectly fine way to go, especially if you are doing like the ripped from the headlines kind of mass audience, very timely, they're gonna push you through, and you just need to know the book is gonna be, I know this is often said in a negative, you guys, but I actually just mean it in the literal, a flash in the pan. It's gonna hit hard, it's gonna make you probably about $10,000, and then it's gone. It's out of print, it's just gone. Advances. I normally don't cover advances, but a lot of authors, when we do this, they say, Jennifer, you didn't cover advances. I have not heard about advances in 20 years. They're not even the large houses are doing advances for anything other than their top earners. But also, I do like to make a very strong point that I think a lot of authors do not understand. Advances are advances. The word advance. Advance against royalties. So they're loaning you your own money. They're saying, we anticipate that you are going to sell 40,000 copies. So we're going to give you $15,000. You are not going to make any royalty until you've made back your advance. Now, I know a Virgo such as myself then says, what if I don't sell 40,000 copies? Well, that depends on whether or not you read your contract closely.
Yeah.
Because your contract can say that there will be a chargeback.
Yeah.
That means, so until I've sold that many copies, I can't spend my advance? Because I might have to give it back? Okay. So I always say an advance is not all it's cracked up to be, and also in this day and age, the people getting advances are arguably the people that have always gotten advances and lived off them, that top 1% of earners. We have authors come to us. There are authors in this room that I know have signed with, in the past have signed with a local gentleman who runs a vanity press. And what I found horrific was that he was charging some authors and not others.
Oh dear.
He was charging different rates, and yet he's still in business. I can report him to the Secretary of State, is it?
Yeah.
But but it's just, I'm like, I'm not trying to, I'm not actually really trying to run around and burn down people's houses, you know what I mean? If that's how they want to run a business and they can sleep at night, that's on them. But I am going to educate folks about, what these really are. Now, for instance, our contracts at Blue Forge Press, one of the things is they're written in English, not in legalese. And I always say, I like to meet with an author the first time before they sign a contract, because some of the things are very specific, the clauses in our contracts, and why in the world do you have this? I say, because this is every single clause in our current contract is the clause I wanted as a 19-year-old with that corporate press. I took their clause and we said to our lawyer, give me the opposite of this. Down the board. Yep, nope. Well, this is actually kind of smart. Nope, don't care. For instance, publishers, corporate publishers, have a very standard clause that says, this should probably make sense business-wise, when you have returns that come in, then you're deducted, because you were paid a royalty. Now you're going to be deducted for the returns. Well, it's not the author's fault there were returns. Trust me, books are not read and then returned. People, they think, oh, I got so many returns for my book, it must not be good. No, again, it's they purchased 100 for a window display and only sold 75 and returned 25. It's that kind of thing. We don't do that. We think, well, work harder as a publisher and you won't get returns. The author cannot stop returns from coming into the industry. We are not going to penalize our authors if they get returns. So that's just kind of one of those things when I say, what is a legitimate publisher? All publishers have a contract. Definitely have your contract looked at.
Can a publisher, in this case, she got her upfront money and they hadn't published the book yet. They started going into the book and changing language. Mm-hmm. Things they didn't like because it was very controversial. So they obviously had that right.
And that right would have been granted to them by that author in that contract. See, that's the crazy thing, is that I always say, you guys, you have the contract. If you don't understand, you need to read it perhaps as many times through as you've read your manuscript to get it accepted and in polished condition.
Is your manuscript ready for submission?
Okay, how do you know if it's ready? Well, is it complete? Now, that might be silly. You guys might go, well, yeah, Jennifer, if I'm submitting, it's complete. We get so many submissions that are not complete. The author has not written it. I think that, how people say, oh, those millennials, which I am not, but, oh, those millennials, they just want their participation trophy. And I always feel like I don't know that about millennials. I have not experienced that with our millennial authors. But what I have experienced of all ages is authors who need encouragement before they finish their book. And that's I try to do a lot of things in the education field, but that is not what I have the time to do. That, I feel, is what a writer's group is actually there for. Yeah. Is encourage you, build you up, keep going, you can do it, let your voice be heard. I can't read your partially written manuscript that is not done and may never be done when folks that have invested the time to write, read aloud, read to other people, revise, and submit, I have time for them. I value their time, they're valuing mine. So the very number one thing is your manuscript complete? Have you taken that manuscript as far as you can take it on your own? Meaning, with your beta readers, is your process, this is it, this is as far as you can take it. Is it formatted, and is it blue pencil clean? So formatted, if you guys want just industry standard format, like I said, 1-inch margins all the way around. And again, nowadays, most publishers want you to submit digitally, a DOC, a DOCX, an ODT, or even some folks will take even a text file. I wouldn't do that personally. I tend to send either a DOC or a DOCX file format, but again, with 1-inch margins, double spaced, 12-point font, sans serif. All sans serif means, you guys, is basically use Arial, Candera, or you can use a serif font that's very standard like Times New Roman. I know those are boring.
Yeah.
Your book is not going to be published in one of those fonts. This is just so that you don't kill the eyes of the editor. The editors want things to come in relatively smooth so that they can read relatively smoothly. Blue pencil clean, what I mean by that, I think you guys probably already know, spelling, grammar, dialogue tags, formatting, things like that. As clean as you can make it. As clean as you can make it. Is your manuscript appropriate? Now, what I mean by that is not appropriate for the world, that's subjective. Appropriate for that publishing house. If you are an author who does not know any of the books that the publishing house, like you say, oh, Random House, they're a publisher, I'll send to them. What do they publish? Tell me 3 books that Random House has published in the last year. You must know what kind of books the publishing house has done, and I always say, currently, because, like with any industry, there tends to be a lot of turnover, especially in corporate houses. So see what they're publishing. My book would work well with this. Now, is your book arguing against something that they've published? Maybe don't send to them. But if it would complement their current body of work, that's a good publisher to send to. Cover ideas on hand. Now, for a corporate house, you don't need this because you're not going to have say into it. But for an independent house, a nonprofit house, Blue Forge Press, I always like to tell people, have some ideas for what you want in your head for your cover. Now, you don't have to be an artist to do that because you've already gone to a bookstore. You've already looked in your genre. You've already looked at exactly where you're going to be shelved between Douglas and Dickens. On that shelf, you know who's going to be on the shelf with you, and you're like, everything here is in, and this is a true thing actually. It was a genre, everything was in blues and purples. A month later, everything was in blues and purples. Same genre. I'm like, wow, there's a real blue and purple trend going on here. And I'm like, all right, give me greens and yellows, big bold font, and let's lean into this kind of theme. Boy, did that pop. Now, you might say, Jennifer, you went to the bookstore twice. What is wrong with you, you overachiever? I will actually go to Barnes & Noble in Silverdale once a month. Because I'm like, what's on the shelves? What's on the shelves? And that's a little fun. Okay. So again, you're not sending your query letter to your publisher saying, and this is what I'd like on my cover. They're going to be like, wow, you should self-publish. No, but just have, if they ask you, or if they send you a contract, there's nothing in there about the cover, then don't return that contract until you let them know what you want on your cover. So it's things like that, you guys. Supporting materials on hand. Dedication, that's a personal thing. So I always call it personal dedication, professional acknowledgments, and your author bio. Author bios should be 100 words. Dedications should be no longer than 50 words and are fantastic when they're 5.
And what about on the back cover? What do you find is the best?
And professional acknowledgments can be pages long if need be.
Right, but
authors do not write the back cover blurb.
Okay.
They should not be asked to write the back cover blurb. We made a big deal about this because I wasn't asked to have anything to do with my back cover at a corporate press. So I said to Brianne, I want all of our authors to be able to say what they get on their back cover because you know what? They know better than anyone else how to market their book. Well, guess what? They don't. And Brianne was so sweet, and she worked with the authors. They would send in their back covers, and then the book would come to me. What the authors at Blue Forge Press don't often know, but this is true for all independent presses, is that the senior editor, before a book goes to print, after it's been approved by the author in the proof stage, the book will go to the publisher. So as the publisher, I would get the book, and this is like I shared with you guys before. There have been covers that I hate, but they're good for their category. They're good in their genre, and the author loves them, so I'm happy. But I'm like, Never, would never buy it. But I don't read in that genre.
And that's the back cover is that quick sale.
That's right. Back cover is that quick sale.
That's the
And
quick sale.
this is what I find, it's also I think, it's misleading. We call it a back cover, but it's not actually, it's your book's description, because it's going to go on the Amazon profile page. It's going to go in the Ingram catalog. It's going to go in the Library of Congress. It's going to go in the libraries when people are searching for your book, that kind of thing. Now, you can say, like for instance, with Christine's book, Flight of the Crow, she said, this is a book about my father and my mother. A lot of people just want to talk about my dad, but I want to talk about both of them. So we made sure they're both mentioned, okay? We, as the publisher, now exclusively write our back covers. If an author tells us what they would like on the back cover, we work with that to make it what it needs to be, so that because here's the other thing, is that I'm afraid that a lot of authors were going to a bookstore, reading back covers, and thinking that a back cover was just a word soup of buzz sentences. We hope you'll enjoy reading this book as much as we enjoy writing it. Unforgettable, haunting. Boy, that book better blow my mind if it opens with unforgettable. Really? There are very few books I've read in my life that are unforgettable, and I read a lot now. I think making up for all that reading that didn't happen when I was a kid.
I have a question about what phase of writing do you actually get a copyright for a manuscript?
Good question.
Never.
Oh no.
Okay, so here's the thing. You can send your manuscript off, and you can, let's see, the last time I did, I think it was $35. You could bet it's probably like $65 now, right? But, and you can pay your fee, fill out your single page form, done deal. You can absolutely do it. But there's no point. And this is why. Because the thing that was true when I was 10 years old is still true today. When your manuscript is done and you have that first draft, you print that off, you put it in an envelope, you seal the envelope, and you mail it to yourself.
Yeah, I've heard that. Okay.
And
That's what I do.
yeah, and then I always say, that's one draft. I don't ever do anything with my first draft other than keep working on it. So I don't submit my first draft to publishers. To me, that's insane. It blows my mind when I have literally sat across from authors and they're like, yeah, I haven't reread it. I wrote it and I edited as I went. I'm like, no, you didn't. you didn't. That's not how it works. I say this is the pattern. This is the timeline. Right, first draft. Now, then I read it to myself in my head. Oh boy, and I make changes. Okay, then I read it aloud. Sometimes I read it aloud with other people in the room. That's hard because you can tell when people check out. And if my 26-year-old son is like reaching for his phone, I'm like, okay, lost that demographic. My 23-year-old daughter's reaching for her brand, doesn't reach for her phone. She heard it. But okay, then. So that's what I do instead of beta readers with questions, is I do that read aloud stage. And I will say, and I'll even print them out sometimes. I'll just like, here are the things I'm worried about, you guys. Is the scene with the horse too much? When the squirrel dies, is that like devastating, or is it like, whatever? What are we missing? Or sometimes I'll be like, hey, you guys, I want to bring this in at 80,000 words. I'm about 10,000 words short. What are scenes that you would love to see that aren't here? Things like that. And I mean, we consider it mandatory.
Yeah.
We're like, well, then what? That's not even where you're not anywhere near getting ready for a publisher if you haven't done an aloud read. The other thing is, I'll always say to an author, do you speak that way? And I mean, yes, we can take that in a glib sense, but also just like, this is very stilted. It's very stiff. People don't speak this way. Write your dialogue the way people speak. So then the read aloud stage.
C.S. Lewis once made the comment, write with the ear.
Yeah.
So then after that read aloud stage and incorporating the feedback from the people that I trust, that I know my genre and are respecting my voice, then I go back, I do my final polish, my final edit, my final edit, my final polish, then I send it to my editor. Now, I have an editor who I fight very hard. I will wait for a spot in the production schedule that I know she will be hard on my manuscript. I wait until I know she's coming off other projects that are going to be really, really difficult, because then I know she's exhausted, because that's what I want. I know that sounds kind of weird, but that's what I want, because I think if I can engage an exhausted editor at my press, then I can engage any reader. Okay. So then it goes to the publishing house and that editor, because that editor may have a whole nother list of things. The things that Brianne has caught in manuscripts that have come in, that none of them that I can say without embarrassing those authors, but like that Disneyland was in Chicago. You know, like they're just little things. But again, that is red pencil. You know, a red pencil editor is who would catch that. So things like that. But you have to be prepared. You cannot say, and now my precious book goes and it will be published exactly as it is. Know what you're going to fight for. For instance, remember that New York press that I told you guys about? So this corporate entity, I did not get to see my cover until I sat down at my first event. There was literally a line out the door, around the block. I'm seeing the book for the first time. It's a Barnes & Noble. The doors are opening. We're in Los Angeles. And I turn, there are giant posters everywhere. Blue and white, the cover. And right there, in the middle of the cover, on a windboard, which is their transportation, you know, balanced on her windboard, is a white woman. The main character in my book, as I shared with you guys, is a black woman. And I don't just mean a Caucasian woman. I mean, she's white. she's lamp white. She's white. She's white. And I know it's supposed to be my main character because the main character's name is Tiger, and she has tiger striped hair. So she has tiger striped hair, but she's white. And I'm like, what is happening? They're like, it's abstract. I'm like, wow, I call it racist. You know, but it's like, okay, but so your publisher may very well ask for some changes, and you need to know going in what you're willing to change and not. And you don't need to share that with the publisher. Don't show your cards. It's okay. You just say, okay, here's my manuscript. This is why I wrote it. This is why it's important to me. I hope you enjoy it, and it's what you're looking for. Yeah. Your initial reaching out to a publisher can be very brief. Okay.
How to give a good interview.
The first little note that I have written for myself here is FOMO, the fear of missing out. Know when to say no to an interview. If you do not have a professional email address, a business card, and your website, and especially if you don't have a book out yet, don't give an interview. And it doesn't, you guys, I am actually and this not usually surprises people, I am a huge advocate for public broadcast stations. It's a great place to practice. But beyond that, if they give copy, can you get a copy of that interview? I have my interviews that I did with NPR during drive time. Having those these years later has been, because then if you have a copy, you can quote someone. You can get some really great quotes that can then wind up as great blurbs on the back of your book. Okay, so it's okay to say no to an interview. Because again, you want to have that, your byline, your little mission statement. You want to know what you're saying. There's no, I don't really know. What was it like to write a book? Well, you know, I don't really know what it was like to write a book. I just had this idea and so I did it. Really? Really? Pretend that you're you're a surgeon. Pretend that you're a tenured professor. Pretend that you are a New York Times. Because remember, I've never been a New York Times bestselling author. I've only been a Seattle Times bestselling author. But I like to, in my head, I look, you are a New York Times bestselling author. Michael Crichton calls you for advice. Put yourself in that great mindset, because your publisher is not going to argue with anything you say. If you call yourself a best-selling mystery author on a public access interview show, your publisher is not going to call the station and tell them you've only sold 100,000 copies, or 2 copies, or 10 copies. Your publisher is going to be like, I love you so much. Who told you to fake it till you make it? Because it wasn't me, but I love it. Okay? Be okay saying no to an interview. Make sure you have those things on hand. Make sure you're able to rattle, oh, this is so, it just breaks my heart. So, yeah, I do. I have a website. It's a wonderful website. Well, you know, I'll get that for you. Okay, your website should be on your business card, because then you'll never forget it. You just read your, yeah, my website is jenniferdemarco.com. Fantastic. Okay. Gracious and in control. You are always gracious, even if the interviewer is not very talented. You are always gracious, even if they try to get you with some zingers, some hot button topics. And you are always in control. Now, we all hate it when politicians do this, right? They're asked a question and they go, before I answer that, let me just say how fantastic our party is. Stay in control. No matter what you're asked, you should go into every interview with certain things you want to say about your book. Because remember, I'm going back to, if you don't have a book, don't give the interview. There's no point. Oh, well, I'm writing a book. It's in the process of going out. That's fine, but it's wasted sales. They say 3 clicks and you lose, 80%. So what that means is, by the time someone has to click 3 times, you've lost 80% of the people that are clicking in the first place. So I'm watching a TV show. I don't know if anyone else does this, but I do. I see something. I want that something. Often it is a book. I pick up my phone. We've been partnered with Amazon, Blue Forge, since the day they launched. Back when our authors at Blue Forge said, Jennifer, why did you sign us up with this feminist publishing, this feminist website, Amazon? We don't want to be with some feminist website called Amazon. And I said, Bob, it's Amazon the river. I don't think so, Jennifer. Okay, but you guys see what I'm saying. And I'll reach over, I'll pick up my phone, and I will go to Amazon, and I will type in the name of that book. Well, actually, first I'll change it to book, and then I'll type in the name of the book. So you might argue that might be 2 clicks. If I find the book, boom, I will buy it. I see an author being interviewed on a show. Wow, they sound really interesting. Okay, I wonder why they're not mentioning the title of their book. I pick up my phone. I type in the author's name. Mistake. Amazon does not do well if you are searching for the author's name. But let's say it comes up. Well, it's not them because they don't have a book. Okay, the book is forthcoming, then it's not on Amazon. You see what I'm saying? You guys, you want that instant, you want to say, I would love to do an interview with you. My book will be done in 2.3 years, or whatever it is. You want a book. If you're doing publicity, you don't need publicity as a writer. You need publicity as an author with a product. Okay. Last but not least, public commenting. In this section, the last thing about giving a good interview is be careful what you say publicly. Like I said, they're air on television, but then they're also posted online. Let's say you said a lot. Don't go to the video and say, ugh, I say a lot. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Always, if you're going to post publicly anywhere as an author, which means anytime you're using the name you write under, then stay in control and stay gracious. I recently had someone say, hey, when my name popped up on the screen, it was spelled wrong. Yeah, you don't post that publicly. You reach out to the show and say, you have my name spelled wrong. And I would even say, thank you so much for the interview. This was fantastic. I didn't have a business card to give you guys, so my name was spelled incorrectly. My bad. Next time. I have never had someone not fix something. Gracious.
Festivals, fairs, and conventions.
Festivals, fairs, and conventions. So I always say before you do any event like that, especially where you're with a group and there's going to be a high traffic, high pressure, very fast, make sure that you know the guidelines for the group that you're with. The reason I'm assuming folks are in a group is that festivals, fairs, conventions have a table charge. Table charges can often be very high, so you may want to split it with another author. I always say, pick your book up, meaning put it on a rack. There are tabletop racks. Though those little L-shaped bracky guys are great, make sure you get really, really stable ones because, again, you don't just want the books to look pretty. You want someone to be able to pick up your book and put it back down and not, okay, so there's that. Obviously, you want to have your mission and your byline ready. How are you going to talk to people? Can you sum up your book or your series of books in one really catchy sentence that isn't like, it's unforgettable? No, it's unforgettable. If we take, well, you know what? I shouldn't pick on poor Dave here.
No.
Oh, okay. So if you say, I'm at a fair. There are no other Christian fiction authors there, and I'm in a unique situation. I can say to people, when I was growing up, I always thought that biblical stories were so amazing, but a story in the Bible, it's sometimes a paragraph long. And I know there's more going on there. And I thought to myself, what is that more? I wanted to show that more respectfully, to stay true to that scripture, but show that more, because there's more. These were people.
He gives the Bible personality. That's why he sells his books. And people, also his setup, anybody who ever wants to come, when they set up a barbecue to you, he went and invested in the flag, invested in the table covers.
Look, this is what Blue Forge Press talks about. So we always tell our authors, you can't do events until you have a banner,
right?
Until you have a tablecloth, until you have a rack.
That's right.
It's like we tell the actors for our filming division. As an actor, as an independent actor, you're often supplying your own wardrobe. The more variety you have in your wardrobe, the easier you will be cast. It's just a simple truth in independent acting. So you want to have, I personally would not use the line, I give the Bible personality, because I think that might take, some people might take my opinion. But to me, you want to have, and again, we push this at Blue Forge, we say, your banner, like for instance, you guys, over here we have some of our books. One of the books that I brought was Diane McPhee. She has a series of mystery novels. And she said, okay, so I should have like a banner done up and it should have like the covers of the books. I said, why would you have the covers of the books? The covers of the books are already there. So we designed for her, which just something that we do, we designed for her a standing banner that is a detective's door. The kind of like the frosted glass of the detective's door. And it says Detective Alan Sharp on it. And mysteries, I can't remember what the byline is at this moment. Diane, please forgive me. So there we go. So you want to have, it wants to be eye-catching. You always want to make sure that all of your materials are money well spent. So if, for instance, if I was designing a banner right now today for Dave Martin's Christian fiction series, the Hall of Faith series, I think I would do something ethereal, something light streaming through clouds with maybe phrases from, or even the topics he focuses on in those books, like the love of, the adventures of, the trial of, like that, so that people would see biblical names that they recognize. So with your vendor setups, we also do often say you make a tablecloth because you don't know what the state of the table is going to be in. Merch and giveaways. We always say for your merch, if you do merch, remember, book covers on merch is useless. Who wants to wear your book cover? We tell people not to do it. Again, there's always exceptions. That's what makes the rule, you know? We always say if you're going to do merch, then do something that will appeal to your audience. So for instance, if I'm doing science fiction and it's dystopian, I'm gonna have a cool dystopian design, and then at the bottom, I'm gonna have my URL to my website. So it's not my book cover, it's a dystopian design that someone who's never read my books would pick up, but it's going to take them to my website. If you are doing merch, always make sure that there is some kind of contact information on the merch. Same thing with a giveaway. Giveaway should be something that someone wants to keep, even if they didn't buy your book that day. Now, you could say, well, I did a postcard. We have authors do postcards all the time. We suggest them. A postcard that takes them to my website, that tells them about my books. Awesome. How many of us, though, have taken postcards at a convention and not purchased whatever's on the postcard? Make the postcard something that someone wants to keep. What can you do? We've had some really fun, we've had little games printed on the postcards. We've had character cards. If it was a gaming event, all kinds of fun things. Because just think outside the box. Push yourself a little bit more. And again, if you're going to do festivals, fairs, or conventions, don't do them until you have everything, because you're already paying for your little 2x2 space or your 6-foot table or whatever it is.
3 foot.
3 foot, there we go. And then the last thing I always tell people is make sure that you do your cost calculation prior to going. Go in telling yourself, am I just here for, this is my favorite thing, exposure? Okay, did someone tell you that it was worth it just for the exposure? Maybe stop and think, what am I paying to do this event? How many books will I have to sell to break even? If I break even in an event, I consider it a success. However, if I do not break even at an event, I don't do it. I think to myself, this is not going to happen. There is no way for me to make that money back. Even if every person that passes me not only takes my giveaway, but goes home and buys one of my books, not worth it to me. So crunch those numbers prior, because if there's too many unknowns, you may wind up being at the end of the month going, wow, boy, I did 9 events this month and I don't have grocery money. Now, if you're like, I don't rely on my events for grocery money, I'm doing it as a social experience. I'm doing it for the exposure because I like getting out there and being an author in the world. Oh, fantastic, then of course it's worth it. It's feeding your heart. Okay.
People make good money.
So the last section in this era, yeah.
When you think about the cost, you have to think about, since we're doing this as a business, because you have to have a license to sell your books, to pay your taxes.
Yes.
So you need to think about not just, the difference in the price that you bought the book and you're selling it for, but okay, what was my gas worth, and what was the parking cost, and what was the other entrance fees? You got to look at all of that. And like you say, we're getting better. There's tons of events out there, but just because there's an event, like you say, there's a lot of them don't pay, and if they don't pay, don't go back.
And I'll sometimes, as from a publisher's perspective, I will say to authors, is it more worthwhile for you to be at X event or for you to be at home writing? There's always that. I have a lot of authors
don't tell
saying,
me that, because I'd certainly just
oh no. I run into this when we have authors that go, oh, I'm so extended because I'm doing this event. I can't write for any of these anthologies. And I'm like, okay, you know what an anthology does? Exposure.
Yeah.
It gets your name out there. Every single time a copy sells, a sample of your writing, especially if the short story that you've put in the anthology is in the same genre that you're writing in. Writing for anthologies, I feel, is why I can support myself as an author, because so many people find me Because of an anthology. I don't write horror, but every year I take a month and I do a short story for the Unnerving collection.
Signings and readings.
I'll get this last little era here, signings and readings, which ties, I think, quite well into festivals, fairs, and conventions. Always bring your own copy when you go to do a reading. Do not read an inventory copy from the bookstore because you will destroy it and then they will return it, and that's bad. Always, always, always bring your own copy. And then have a segment that you read in your book that is 5 minutes long. Time yourself at home. Don't read it in your head and time it. Read it aloud and time it. You should have a 5-minute, a 15-minute, and a 30-minute. And I can't believe I have to say this, but because one of our authors did this, I now say it every time. Do not read the last scene of the book. Under any circumstances. And do not read the climactic point of the book.
Is that because of killing sales or something?
Yes, yes.
And that's also
you-
the hardest thing at events is don't tell your whole story.
Exactly. How do
And
you
I fall into
engage?
that trap.
And I will say that I have never had a publisher not help with this. If an author is truly lost and they're like, I don't know what to read, just ask your editor. Now, don't ask your editor an hour or a day before you're going to do the event, but a month before, absolutely. Any editor should be able to tell you, I would recommend this 5-minute reading, this 15-minute reading, and this 30-minute reading. Right, highlight the quality of your idea. So when you are talking with folks before you do your reading, you want to hit on, that little mission statement. What is the core idea of your book? Like Dave, you can't give away, you don't want to give away the most important parts of the book. You want people to want to read it. But at the same time, about Huldah, you can say, ultimately, you guys, this is a book about women being empowered. You don't hear about that a lot in the Bible, do ya? See? But like that, yeah. Okay, there you go.
Yeah.
So that's like at the core, your idea, when we go back to the IDEA, that's at the core there, that idea. And then of course, just always make sure that you're introducing yourself with your mission and your byline. All right, so you guys, that is the first 2 eras.
This ends Era 2. Please continue to the next video in the playlist for our final era, Era 3.